The evening rush was just starting to die down on the Fremont Bridge overlook. It was 7 o'clock. In front of me was a folding card table, and propped up on it was a piece of cardboard with a few lines scrawled in black Sharpie. Professional hype man. $5 for 10 minutes. Satisfaction guaranteed. This is how I make a living. In an age where everyone's running on fumes, people need emotional validation more than ever. And I, Chase, am a wholesale distributor of that sweet, sweet validation. $4 or $5. I'll make you believe you're the chosen one. Sign up for a yearly subscription, and I'll have you convinced that angels are taking notes. Business wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It paid the bills. Barely. A girl stopped in front of my table. She was wearing a simple white dress, and her hair was long. She kept her head down, so I couldn't see her face, but just from her posture and the way she held herself, you could tell she was beautiful. But there was also an aura of pure ice radiating off her, the kind of keep-away vibe you could feel from 10 feet away. I was about to plaster on my professional grade smile when a line of blood-red text suddenly materialized in my vision. Name, Juliana Croft. Status, the novel's primary antagonist. Condition, profoundly world-weary. Burn it all down countdown, 24 hours. The smile froze on my face. A second line of text lazily scrolled into view. Inner monologue. Leo Sterling can go to hell. Who is he to say I'm the kind of person who suffocates everyone around her? A third line followed, simmering with a scorched earth, self-destructive energy. Inner monologue. Fine. Then let's see how the whole damn world likes to suffocate. I just stared. My brain blue-screened for a solid 3 seconds. As someone who'd been dropped into this world from another, I'd long ago accepted the fact that I was living in a novel. I'd also accepted my own personal superpower, the ability to see spoilers and people's inner thoughts. But all I ever wanted was to be a background character. An NPC. I just wanted to run my little stand on the bridge, make enough cash to get by, and coast. This woman in front of me was the villain. She was about to have her villain origin story. She was about to try and break the world. You couldn't pay me $500 to take this job. The next second, I followed my deepest survival instinct. I snatched the cardboard sign, folded it in half, and shoved it into my backpack. With one hand, I flipped the release on my folding table, collapsing the legs and tucking it under my arm. The whole process was smooth as silk, taking less than 5 seconds. Time to pack it in. Time to run. I turned and started walking toward the stairs, not looking back. Why are you running? The girl's voice came from behind me. It was cool and clear, with a faint trace of confusion I don't think she intended to let out. I didn't break stride. In fact, I picked up the pace. Lady, you're about to go full supervillain. Of course I'm running. You think I'm an idiot? Inner monologue. Why did he run? Do I look that scary? The feed was still active. You don't look scary, I screamed internally. Your inner monologue is terrifying. The stairs leading off the bridge were just ahead. Freedom was in sight. A blur of white flashed past me, and the figure from before was blocking my path. It was Juliana. She'd finally lifted her head, revealing a face so beautiful it was almost unreal. Her skin was the color of cool marble, her features as delicate as a painting. But her eyes, there was no life in them, just the dead, still darkness of the deep ocean. I asked you, why are you running? She asked again, her voice edged with a stubborn intensity. Clutching my folded table, I managed a smile that felt more like a pained grimace. Sorry, miss. Saw the cops heading this way. Gotta pack up before they write me a ticket. Inner monologue. Cops? There are no cops here. He's lying. Damn this superpower. I don't see any cops, she said, her dead-sea eyes locked on mine. They're plain clothes. You know, undercover. They're very sneaky. I was officially talking out of my ass. She didn't say anything. She just kept staring, and the emptiness in her eyes seemed to be gathering into a storm. Condition. Apathy level plus 1%. Inner monologue, of course. Even a total stranger is making excuses to get away from me. Burn it all down countdown. 23 hours, 59 minutes. A chill went up my spine. Great. My casual attempt to flee had just accelerated the apocalypse. I cleared my throat and decided to try a different tactic. Look, actually, my wife is going into labor. I have to get to the hospital. Sorry, if you'll just let me by. It's a matter of life and death. I tried to squeeze past her. She reached out, her slender fingers pressing down on my folded table. She wasn't strong, but the table suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You don't have a wife?" she stated, her tone absolute. My heart skipped a beat. Was she a mind reader too? Inner monologue. He's not wearing a wedding ring. His expression is panicked, and he won't make eye contact. He's still lying. I gave up. This girl wasn't just a world-weary villain in training. She was a walking lie detector. "What do you want from me?" I surrendered, my voice flat with defeat. "Your sign," she said, pointing to the corner of the cardboard sticking out of my backpack. "It says Professional Hype Man." "Yeah, that's me. What are your rates?" $5 for 10 minutes, I answered automatically. "I want to put you on retainer." "Huh." I blinked. She looked at me, and for the first time, a flicker of something that wasn't emptiness crossed her face. It was a kind of dark self-mockery. "I'll pay you a salary. $50,000 a month." My brain stalled. "Your job will be to follow me. And whenever, wherever, you will provide me with your exclusive hype services." She paused. "Until I'm satisfied. 50,000 a month." The words exploded in my head like depth charges. I'll admit it. In that moment, my desire for financial security completely overwhelmed my fear of the impending apocalypse. I'm a simple man, a man whose greatest ambition was to coast. Saving the world, heroes, villains, that was all way above my pay grade. But $50,000 a month was very, very close to the 3-digit balance in my checking account. I looked at Juliana's Ice Queen face as my internal feed kept scrolling. Inner monologue. Will he agree? Or will he think I'm insane and run even faster? Apathy level, 98%. Burn it all down countdown, 23 hours, 45 minutes. Her apathy level was a sword hanging over my head. I swallowed hard. Miss, you're sure you mean $50,000? Yes, she nodded, her expression unchanged, as if she were talking about pocket change. After taxes? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She paused for a second, like she hadn't considered that. Inner monologue. Taxes? There are taxes? What a hassle. Then she looked at me and said, with complete seriousness, "After taxes." I took a deep breath, feeling my principles dissolving one by one. So I have to hype someone up? That's literally my job description. So I have to hype up a world-destroying antagonist? Okay, so the job has a high difficulty setting. Besides, if I could hype her up, get her happy, maybe her apathy level would drop. Maybe the world would be safe. When you think about it that way, this isn't a salary. It's funding for a world-saving operation. Suddenly, I felt like a hero. "You've got a deal," I said, puffing out my chest with newfound purpose. But let me be clear. When I hype someone, I hype them based on facts. I don't do false advertising. This was, of course, total bull. My business motto was, if the price is right, I can make a rock sound like a diamond. Inner monologue. Based on facts? Is there anything about me worth praising? A sliver of doubt and a microscopic hint of expectation appeared in Juliana's eyes. "Where's the contract?" I held out my hand. "There is no contract." "Nope, can't do it." I shook my head immediately. "This is a major deal. No contract, no service. A verbal agreement isn't worth the paper it's not written on. What if you decide not to pay me? Who do I complain to then?" I wasn't really worried about her skipping out on payment. I was worried she'd get bored one day and just erase me along with the rest of the world. A contract, at least, would be a psychological security blanket. Juliana frowned, clearly annoyed by the complication. Inner monologue. This man is so much trouble. More trouble than just destroying the world. I pretended I didn't see that one. "Fine," she said, pulling a sleek black card from her small purse. "There's 100,000 on here. The PIN is 6 zeros. Consider it a 2-month advance. Come with me. You start now." I stared at the card. It was matte black with no bank logo, no Visa or MasterCard symbol. It didn't look real. System alert. This is a universal credit stick from the ShadowNet. Current balance. 10 low-grade elemental crystals. Approximate street value. $120,000. My jaw dropped. ShadowNet? Elemental crystals? I thought this was just some generic romance novel. I had clearly misjudged the situation. This was an urban fantasy romance novel. And I, a completely normal guy with no powers besides my weird spoiler vision, had just taken a job with a goddamn supervillain from the magic underworld. My knees started to feel a little weak again. What? Is it not enough? Juliana's voice turned colder when she saw me hesitating. No, it's plenty. I snatched the card and stuffed it in my pocket, terrified she might change her mind. Right this way, boss. Where are we headed? I'm ready to start work immediately. Principals? Can you trade those for elemental crystals? I didn't think so. My house. She turned and walked away. I clutched my folding table and scurried after her like a medieval squire trailing his knight. We walked down the stairs from the bridge, where a black Bentley was waiting at the curb. A driver in a crisp suit saw us approaching and immediately got out to open the rear door. Looking at the scene, I felt a wave of emotion. The simple, unpretentious life of the ultra-rich. I stood awkwardly by the open car door, hugging my folding table. It didn't exactly match the Bentley's aesthetic. Throw it out, Juliana said coolly from inside the car. No way. I clutched it tighter. This is my livelihood. Inner monologue. It's just a folding table. What's there to be sentimental about? Boss, you just don't get it, I said, clearing my throat and launching into my first official hype service. This table may look ordinary, but it represents a spirit. The unbeatable spirit of a grassroots, bootstrap entrepreneur. It has witnessed my blood, sweat, and tears. It's a medal of honor. It is the very foundation of my future business empire. I was so passionate, I almost believed myself. The driver was staring at me, dumbfounded. Juliana watched me in silence from the car. Inner monologue. What a load of crap. Apathy level, 97.9%. It worked. It only went down by 0.1%, but it went down. I saw a glimmer of hope. Put in the trunk, she finally relented. I let out a sigh of relief and carefully handed my Medal of Honor to the driver. Sinking into the plush leather of the Bentley's back seat, I felt like I was in a dream. Half an hour ago, I was a hustler on an overpass, living hand to mouth. Now I was an exclusive emotional consultant on a $50,000 monthly retainer, riding in a Bentley. Life really comes at you fast. I stole a glance at Juliana beside me. She was leaning against the window, watching the city lights streak by. Her eyes were still that same bottomless Dead Sea. Inner monologue. So this is it. I'll hire someone to lie to me every day until I get sick of it, or until he runs out of new lies to tell. My stomach dropped. This job wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. This wasn't a salary. This was hazard pay. The Bentley drove into an ultra-exclusive gated community, the enclave at Laurelhurst. Every house in here was a mini mansion with its own sprawling, manicured lawn. The security guard at the gate looked more intimidating than any CEO I'd ever seen. The car finally stopped in front of the largest house at the very end of the street. It was a stark, Gothic-style mansion, painted entirely in black. In the gathering twilight, it looked like a slumbering beast, radiating a grim, oppressive aura. I followed Juliana inside, and the interior design took the concept of keep out to a whole new level. Black walls, black sofas, black carpets. The massive floor-to-ceiling windows looked out onto a dense grove of trees that blocked almost all the natural light. There was no warmth, no sign of life. It felt less like a home and more like a mausoleum. Inner monologue. What's he going to say about my house? That looks like something out of a horror movie. The text popped up right on cue. My survival instinct immediately kicked into work mode. Boss, I have to say, your taste is absolutely sublime, I declared, looking around with an expression of pure awe. Juliana, who had been taking off her shoes at the door, paused. She didn't say anything. You see this all-black design scheme, I continued. At first glance, one might find it oppressive. But if you really take it in, you realize it's not oppressive at all. It is the ultimate form of tranquility. Black is the final destination of all colors. It consumes all the noise and chaos of the outside world, leaving only the purest essence of self. This house shows that you, its owner, possess a powerful mind that sees through the trivialities of the world and cannot be shaken by them. As I spoke, I watched her for any reaction. She finished with her shoes and walked silently to the living room sofa, where she sat down. Inner monologue. Sees through trivialities? A powerful mind? Is he talking about me? Apathy level, 97.8%. Another 0.1% down. I'm mentally fist-pumped. This line of reasoning seemed to be working. A middle-aged man who looked like a butler appeared, bowing respectfully to Juliana. "Miss Croft, dinner is served." Then his eyes fell on me, sharp and appraising. "And who is this?" the butler asked, his tone laced with suspicion. "He's my emotional consultant," Juliana replied, the words sounding a bit awkward. The butler froze, clearly baffled by the job title. "A pleasure to meet you, sir. My name is Chase," I said, extending a hand and flashing a perfect eight-toothed smile. "My job is to assist Miss Croft in maintaining a positive and optimistic outlook through the art of verbal encouragement." The butler did not shake my hand. He just gave a stiff nod, his suspicion deepening. Mr. Sterling called earlier. He asked if you—" "I'm not available." Juliana cut him off, her voice like ice. "Very well." The butler didn't press the issue and retreated. "Mr. Sterling? That must be the male lead, Leo Sterling." Inner monologue, Leo Sterling. That name again. Apathy level, 97.8%, 97.9%, 98%. Oh crap, a relapse. I had to intervene. "Boss, your butler is so professional." The man walks with an air of authority. You can tell he's the best of the best. You truly have a gift for finding talent. Even your staff is top tier. Inner monologue. Arthur has been with my family for 20 years. Apathy level, 97.9%. It dropped back down. That was a close call. So, anything related to the male lead is a landmine. Got it. "Let's eat," Juliana said, standing and walking toward the dining room. The long dining table was laden with exquisite dishes that looked like they'd come from a Michelin-starred restaurant. But in the cavernous room, she was the only one at the table. I knew my place and stood off to the side. She picked up her fork, took a small bite of food, and chewed slowly, her eyes vacant. The silence was deafening. Inner monologue. Eating alone. It's been 10 years. Inner monologue. The food. It has no taste. My heart gave a strange little pang. This girl, the one designated as the primary antagonist, just seemed incredibly lonely. After a few more bites, she put her fork down. "I'm done." The feast on the table was virtually untouched. She stood up, ready to head upstairs. "Boss, if I may," I called out, stopping her. She turned to look at me. "Your dining etiquette is textbook perfect," I said with heartfelt admiration. Inner monologue. Dining etiquette? Yes. I nodded emphatically. From the moment you picked up your fork to the moment you set it down, the entire process was silent, graceful, without a single wasted motion. That's not just good manners. That's a form of respect for the food, a kind of deep, ingrained class that can't be faked. Furthermore, you eat at a calm, measured pace. That shows you have incredible control over your life. You can tell a lot about a person by how they eat, and your meal just told me that you are operating on a whole other level. I delivered the monologue in one breath, amazed at my own ability to spin garbage into gold. Juliana was quiet for a long time, so long that I started to worry I'd gone too far. Then, she turned around, walked back to the table, and sat down. She picked up her fork again and silently, methodically, finished the rest of the asparagus on her plate. Apathy level, 97.5%. Seeing that 0.4% drop, I felt for the first time that this job might be about more than just the 50 grand a month salary. When she was finished, she said, "There are guest rooms downstairs. Pick one." Then she went upstairs. Her back was still lonely, but her steps seemed just a little bit steadier than before. I looked at the empty dining room and let out a long, slow breath. Day one was in the books. I'd survived. This wasn't being an emotional consultant. This was walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and it wasn't just me going down, it was the whole world. On my second day at Juliana's, I learned the true meaning of the boring life of the rich. I stumbled out of my guest room at 9 in the morning to find the massive house eerily quiet. Juliana was already on the living room sofa, holding a book, but her eyes were unfocused, staring into space. Inner monologue. What should I do today? Or should I just do nothing and wait for time to pass? I immediately snapped into work mode. "Morning, boss. That outfit looks amazing on you today. It's so simple, yet so elegant. It perfectly highlights your cool, sophisticated aura. Just by sitting there, you've elevated the style of this entire house by at least 10 points." She was wearing a plain gray sweatsuit. It was a normal sweatsuit, but on her, it somehow looked like haute couture. Inner monologue. More of this over-the-top flattery. Apathy level, 97.4%. It dropped, but not by much. It seemed repeated compliments had diminishing returns. I needed to find new material. Arthur, is breakfast ready? I called toward the kitchen. The butler, Arthur, emerged with a tray, his expression as sour as ever. He clearly thought I was some kind of con artist. Breakfast was milk and a sandwich. Simple but balanced. Juliana ate in small bites, still without much of an appetite. After breakfast, she returned to the sofa and resumed staring into space. I racked my brain, trying to think of something for her to do. When people have too much idle time, their minds start to wander, and for her, that meant the apathy level would start to climb. Boss, do you have any hobbies? Like painting? Playing the piano? She shook her head. What about cooking? I asked tentatively. She gave me a strange look. Inner monologue. Cooking? I've never cooked. Leo always said that a good woman knows her way around a kitchen. Leo again. Warning bells went off in my head. Apathy level, 97.4%. 97.5%. Ahem. I quickly cut off that train of thought. Boss, please don't misunderstand. I'm not talking about the kind of cooking you do to please someone else. That's so beneath you. I'm talking about artistic creation. The art of transforming mundane grains and vegetables into culinary masterpieces through your own ingenuity and creativity. This is your own personal brand of magic. My little speech seemed to stun her. Inner monologue. My own personal magic. Exactly. Magic. I snapped my fingers. Wouldn't you like to try being a culinary magician? Maybe my metaphor was just weird enough to work. To my surprise, she slowly nodded. An hour later, standing at the entrance to the kitchen and surveying the absolute disaster inside, I felt a profound sense of regret. Juliana possessed zero talent for cooking. She couldn't tell salt from sugar, oil was splattered everywhere, and the steak in the pan now resembled a lump of charcoal. The entire kitchen smelled of burnt offerings. Arthur stood nearby, looking horrified, wanted to step in, but held back by the warning look I kept shooting him. Finally, Juliana emerged from the kitchen, holding a plate of something so blackened it was impossible to identify. She placed the plate on the dining table and looked down, her expression hidden. Inner monologue. I knew it. I can't do anything right. Apathy level, 98.5%. Oh no, I screwed up. Big time. Her apathy level was higher now than when I first met her. I could practically hear the world-ending alarms blaring in my head. I had to salvage this. I rushed to the table, picked up a knife and fork, leaned over the plate of charcoal, and took a deep, appreciative sniff, my face a mask of pure ecstasy. My God, what is this masterpiece? Juliana's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Arthur's jaw dropped. He looked at me like I was insane. Boss, do you know what this dish makes me think of? I closed my eyes, looking thoughtful. It makes me think of the philosophical concept of less is more. Look at this steak. It has shed all the flashy, unnecessary cooking techniques. Searing, basting, sous vide. It needs none of them. It has returned to the most primitive, most fundamental form of food, carbon. And what is carbon? It is the building block of life itself, the origin of the universe. You weren't just cooking a steak. You were using it as a medium to explain the ultimate secrets of the cosmos. My voice echoed in the cavernous dining room, full of conviction. And the aroma, I leaned in and took another dramatic sniff. This charred scent is not a symbol of failure, but of the courage to be reborn from the ashes. It represents your innovative spirit, your willingness to defy tradition and break the rules. This is culinary deconstructionism. You are a pioneer. Juliana was stunned into silence. She looked from the charcoal on her plate to me, the confusion in her eyes slowly being replaced by a strange new light. Inner monologue, culinary, deconstructionism. Apathy level, 98.5%, 98%, 97%, 96%. It's dropping. It's dropping like a rock. I was ecstatic. The crazier the better, apparently. I ceremoniously speared a small piece of the carbon with my fork and placed it in my mouth. An indescribable bitterness and the taste of pure char exploded on my tongue. I almost died on the spot, but I kept my expression fixed in a state of sublime bliss, even managing to squeeze out 2 tears of emotion. Delicious. It's absolutely delicious. I choked out. I can almost taste the stars. Juliana stared at me, and the corner of her mouth seemed to twitch upward. The curve was so small it was almost invisible, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. Apathy level, 95%. Fighting the urge to spit out what was in my mouth, I looked her in the eye and said with the utmost gravity, "Boss, you are an undiscovered culinary genius." In that moment, I felt I was earning every single penny of my $50,000 salary. I wasn't just hyping her up. I was risking my life to do it. After the great culinary disaster, Juliana seemed to have developed a kind of immunity to my more outlandish compliments. I could see it in her inner monologue, which shifted from "he's talking nonsense" to "here we go with the nonsense again," now tinged with a subtle, amused curiosity. Her apathy level stabilized at 95%, not going up but not going down either. We'd hit a plateau. I knew I needed a new angle. That afternoon, I found her staring into space in the study. It was a huge room. All 4 walls were lined with towering, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, but every single shelf was empty. A single, large easel stood in the center of the room, looking stark and out of place. "Boss, did you ever study painting?" I asked, walking in. She shook her head. "No." Inner monologue. "Leo said girls who can paint are classy, but I could never learn." Him again. That Leo Sterling was a ghost that haunted this house. Seeing her apathy level start to twitch, I quickly jumped in. "Perfect. People who learn how to paint are just technicians, trapped by rules and conventions. People like you, who are self-taught, are the real geniuses. Your mind is free. Your brush is untamed." I pressed a paintbrush in her hand, my voice low and hypnotic. "Go on, boss. Don't hesitate. Close your eyes, follow your heart, and unleash your most primal urges, your most explosive emotions, right onto this canvas." She looked completely bewildered by my spiel, but, against her better judgment, she picked up the brush. She really did close her eyes. Then she began to paint. It wasn't painting. It was pure, unadulterated rage venting. Black paint was violently flung at the canvas. The lines were chaotic, jagged, with absolutely no aesthetic appeal. It looked like a madman's graffiti. When she was done, she opened her eyes and stared at her masterpiece, falling into a long silence. Inner monologue, of course. What I created is just as much of a mess as what's inside my head. Apathy level, 95%, 96%, 97%. Red alert. I leaped in front of the easel, grabbing the frame with both hands, my body trembling with theatrical excitement. A masterpiece. This is an absolute masterpiece. I roared. Juliana looked up, her expression clearly saying, "Are you blind? Boss, don't you see it?" I pointed at the frantic lines on the canvas. "Look at this line here, so full of power, as if it's trying to rip the very canvas apart. What does that represent? It represents a scream of protest against the injustice of fate. And look at this splotch of black here. It looks chaotic, but it contains infinite possibilities. Doesn't it look like the singularity just before the Big Bang? It holds 1 billion stars, the birth of a brand new universe. This isn't a painting. This is philosophy. This is the truth of the cosmos. This is the final form of abstract expressionism that makes Picasso and Van Gogh look like amateurs." I was on a roll, feeling like I'd missed my true calling as a cult leader. Juliana just stared, completely flabbergasted. She walked up to the easel, carefully studying her own scribbles, her eyes filled with a dazed confusion. Inner monologue. "Is that right? Did I paint the Big Bang?" "Absolutely," I said, my voice ringing with certainty. "Boss, you weren't painting. You were channeling the divine. Your paintbrush is a conduit to another dimension. I suggest you name this piece immediately. Call it Genesis Chaos." She looked at the painting, then back at me, as if trying to gauge how much of what I was saying was real. Apathy level, 97%, 96%, 95%. 93%. It was working beautifully. This painting, she finally spoke, her voice a little hoarse. Is it really that good? Good doesn't even begin to cover it. I said, my voice full of anguish. This is a treasure of art history. To keep it hanging here is a crime against humanity. It should be immediately sent to the Louvre, to be hung right next to the Mona Lisa for the whole world to admire. Never mind the fact that I didn't even know which way the door to the Louvre faced. That afternoon, Juliana stared at her Genesis chaos for 3 straight hours, and her apathy level, for the first time ever, dropped to 90%. That evening, as I was heading to my room for the night, she called out to me. Chase. Yes, boss. What can I do for you? She pulled a small, framed painting from behind her back and handed it to me. It was a new masterpiece, another chaotic scribble, but this one had something else in it, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. A gift, she said simply. I took it, feeling genuinely honored. Thank you, boss. This is too much. I gave a name, she said quietly. What is it? Bullshit. And with that, she turned and went upstairs, leaving me standing there, completely stunned. I looked down at the painting in my hands, then at her retreating back, and couldn't help but smile. This world-weary antagonist was actually starting to get interesting. The next few weeks fell into a relatively stable routine. Juliana seemed to have taken a liking to this deconstructionist and abstract expressionist phase of her creative journey. Every day, she would produce a mountain of inedible food and chaotic paintings, then look at me with an expression of mixed doubt and anticipation, waiting for my performance to begin. And I, in turn, had gone from racking my brain for compliments to becoming a master of improvisation. I invented terms like the stream of consciousness cooking method, the subconscious automatic art theory, and postmodern plating art, a series of increasingly nonsensical concepts that she seemed to completely buy into. Her apathy level slowly but surely dropped from 90% all the way down to 85%. It was still a long way from the safe zone, but at least I no longer had to worry about the world ending every 5 minutes. The atmosphere in the mansion began to change, too. It no longer felt like a dead, silent tomb. There was a spark of life in it. The way Arthur the butler looked at me also shifted from suspicion and hostility to something more complex. He probably still thought I was a con artist, but a con artist who was somehow surprisingly effective. One day, I was in the middle of a passionate critique of her latest culinary creation, a plate of barbecued chicken wings I had dubbed volcanic eruption, when she suddenly cut me off. Chase, right here, boss. Do you actually believe any of the words you say? She was looking right at me, her eyes clear and serious. This was not a joke. It was a trap. If I said yes, I was treating her like an idiot. If I said no, I was admitting that I'd been lying to her this whole time. My job would be over, my $50,000 salary would vanish, and the shock might send her apathy level straight back to 100%. My brain kicked into overdrive. Inner monologue. How is he going to answer? He'll say he believes it, of course. It's his job. The monologue gave me my clue. I couldn't give her the answer she was expecting. I paused for a moment, letting a look of deep, philosophical contemplation settle on my face. Boss, that's an excellent question. Belief is ultimately a subjective thing. I wasn't answering directly. I was deflecting. The way I see it, everything in this world can be interpreted from an infinite number of perspectives. To a botanist, a flower is a reproductive organ. To a poet, it's a symbol of love. To a bee, it's a source of food. Which one of those is the truth? I had her a bit confused. Inner monologue. He's changing the subject. I'm not changing the subject, I said, as if I could hear her thoughts. What I'm saying is that value isn't an objective reality. It's something that we assign to things. Van Gogh's paintings were worthless when he was alive, but after he died, they became priceless. Did the paintings change? No. The way people looked at them changed. People assigned a new value to them. I pointed to the plate of chicken wings, which were burnt on the outside and raw on the inside, and my expression was deadly serious. So, back to your question. Does it matter if I believe it? No, it doesn't. What matters is whether I can provide you with a new perspective, a new way to see the value in yourself that you've been overlooking. My job isn't to lie to you. My job is to be your first value discoverer. I do the discovering. You just have to do the believing. You don't lack confidence. You just never had a professional hype man before. When I finished, the dining room was completely silent. Juliana was looking down, her long eyelashes hiding her expression. Inner monologue. Discovering the value I've overlooked. Inner monologue. For all these years, no one has ever said anything like that to me. They only ever told me what I should be or what I shouldn't be. Inner monologue. He's the only one who wants to help me discover my own value. The monologue scrolled past, like watching a silent film. I saw her shoulders begin to tremble slightly. Apathy level, 85%, 83%, 80%. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. I had passed the test. After a long time, she finally looked up, her eyes a little red. Chase, yo, you're getting a raise. Huh, starting today, your salary is $100,000 a month. I just stood there, stunned. Happiness had come so suddenly, I didn't know what to do. Did I really just talk my way into a six-figure monthly salary? Thank you, boss. I was so excited I almost bowed. Don't you worry. I will redouble my efforts to discover new, deeper, and more expansive dimensions of your inherent value. She just grunted in response, picked up her fork, speared a blackened chicken wing, and put it in her mouth. She chewed it twice, her brow furrowed, and then she swallowed. The taste, she commented, her face a perfect poker mask, could still use some improvement. I looked at her, and for the first time, it felt like a ray of sunshine had finally broken through the perpetual gloom of this black mansion. Time flew by. Before I knew it, I had been living at Juliana's for a month. In that month, I had witnessed the subtle transformation of a world-weary girl. She started trying to pick out her own clothes, though her sense of style was still a work in progress. She asked Arthur to plant some flowers in the garden, even though she never tended to them herself. She even, on occasion, let out a tiny, fleeting smile while watching funny videos on her phone. Her apathy level had stabilized around 75%. It was a relatively safe number. At least she wasn't constantly on the verge of ending the world anymore. My job had become easier. I no longer felt like I was walking on eggshells 24/7. Sometimes I even felt less like an emotional consultant and more like I was playing house with a lonely little girl. Until the day he showed up and shattered the peace. That afternoon, Juliana and I were in the living room, analyzing her latest painting, which she had titled Dance of the Demons. The doorbell rang. Arthur went to get it. Standing on the doorstep was a tall, handsome young man. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored designer suit, his hair impeccably styled, and on his face was a polite, yet distant smile. The moment he appeared, my internal feed exploded. Name, Leo Sterling. Status, the novel's male protagonist. Current objective, ascertain Juliana Croft's recent activities. There he was, the man himself, the bastard who had driven Juliana to the brink of wanting to destroy the world. I instinctively looked over at Juliana. The color had drained from her face, and her body had gone rigid. Inner monologue. What is he doing here? Inner monologue. Did he come to humiliate me again? Apathy level, 75%, 78%, 82%. Not good. The numbers were climbing fast. Juliana, long time no see, Leo said as he walked in. His eyes swept across the living room, lingering for a moment on me with a subtle mix of judgment and contempt. I heard you haven't been out lately. I was worried, so I thought I'd come check on you. His tone was gentle, but it dripped with a kind of condescending arrogance. Inner monologue. A month without her bothering me. I thought she'd finally gotten the hint. Turns out she's been hiding a man in her house. Pathetic Juliana. Is this the best you can do? I saw right through him. This guy wasn't here to check on her. He was here to needle her. Juliana bit her lip, saying nothing, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. And who is this? Leo's gaze finally landed on me, his question a deliberate provocation. He's my friend. Juliana cut me off. Her voice was quiet but firm. Leo raised an eyebrow, looking surprised. Inner monologue. A friend? Someone with her personality has friends. Oh, really? Leo chuckled, walking over to her Dance of the Demons painting and making a show of admiring it. Is this your work? It's very abstract. The words were complimentary, but his eyes were full of ridicule. Juliana, I've told you before, you don't have an artistic bone in your body. You shouldn't force it. Why not stick to things you're actually good at? This was one of his classic lines from the novel, a verbal jab he used to put her down. Every time, it cut her to the quick. Sure enough, I saw Juliana sway slightly, her face growing even paler. Apathy level, 82%, 85%, 88%. Any further, and all my work would be undone. I couldn't stand by any longer. I took a step forward, positioning myself between Juliana and Leo, a polite, professional smile on my face. A pleasure to meet you, sir. I must say, your understanding of art is profoundly shallow. The smile on Leo's face vanished. Inner monologue. What did he just say? Did he dare to call me shallow? Juliana's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. What do you know about it? Leo's expression darkened. Oh, I don't know much, I said, holding up my hands. I just think that the value of a piece of art shouldn't be casually dismissed by a layman. Who are you calling a layman? You, of course. I smiled even more brightly. You see only the surface of this painting, but you are completely blind to its deeper meaning. It's like a first grader trying to critique Einstein's theory of relativity. What can he say other than I don't get it? The air in the living room turned to ice. Arthur looked like he was about to have a heart attack. The color of Leo's face had gone from red to a deep purple. Inner monologue. Who is this guy? How dare he talk to me like that? He's dead. That rather murderous thought made me a little nervous. But for my $100,000 salary, and for the sake of world peace, I was all in. I turned to Juliana and gave her an encouraging look. Your turn, boss. Use the theories I taught you. Wreck him. Juliana got the signal. She took a deep breath and stepped out from behind me, facing Leo directly. It was the first time I had ever seen her not shrink away from him. Leo, her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes were surprisingly steady. You say I don't understand art. But what about you? What do you understand? The sudden counterattack clearly caught Leo off guard. Inner monologue. She's questioning me. Leo was speechless. He came from a powerful family, but at the end of the day, he was just a rich kid whose knowledge of art was limited to knowing the names of a few famous painters. You don't know, Juliana answered for him. You only know how to judge a painting by the most superficial standard there is, whether it looks realistic or not. In your world, if a painting looks like a photograph, it's good. If it doesn't, it's garbage. These were all arguments I had drilled in her head. I never thought she'd actually remember them, let alone use them so effectively. This painting was not made for common people like you, Juliana said, pointing at Dance of the Demons. Her voice tinged with a pride I had never heard before. It expresses an emotion, an idea, a desire to break free from constraints. If you don't understand it, that's not the painting's fault. It's because your perspective is too small. Leo's face was now a thundercloud. He probably never imagined that the quiet, timid girl who used to follow him around like a puppy would one day stand up to him and tell him his perspective was too small. Inner monologue. Has she lost her mind? Who gave her the courage to say this? Was it him? His eyes shot daggers at me. I met his gaze calmly, the polite, harmless smile still fixed on my face. You've changed, Juliana. Leo's voice went cold. Who taught you all this nonsense? It's not nonsense, she shook her head. Chase taught me to see the world from a new perspective. She said my name so naturally. Chase. Leo savored the name, the hostility in his eyes growing. So some silver-tongued con artist has you wrapped around his little finger? He's not a con artist. Juliana's voice rose with emotion. He understands me better than you ever did. That line hit Leo like a physical blow. Inner monologue. He understands her better than me? Impossible. I've known her since we were kids. I know exactly what kind of person she is. Inner monologue. A sensitive, paranoid, gloomy girl who does nothing but cause trouble for everyone. The monologue mercilessly revealed his true feelings. Looking at Leo, I suddenly felt a pang of pity for him. He thought he knew Juliana, but all he knew were the cruel, biased labels he had slapped on her himself. Is that so? Leo sneered, preparing for his final attack. Then let's ask your insightful friend here if he can tell me what this is supposed to be. He pointed to a small, elegant plate on the coffee table. On the plate were a few cookies of a strange color and warped shape. They were Juliana's latest creation from that afternoon. I hadn't had time to come up with a good compliment for them yet. This was his finishing move. He knew she was a terrible cook, and he wanted to use this to crush the fragile confidence she had just built up. Juliana's face went white again. All eyes in the room were now on me. I felt like I was in an exam, and this was the final all-or-nothing question. Get right, and everyone wins. Get it wrong, and we're back to square one. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up a cookie, and examined it for a moment. Then I put it in my mouth. A complex flavor of salty, sweet, bitter, and spicy exploded on my tongue. I very nearly spit it out, but I held on. I closed my eyes, savoring, an expression of pure bliss on my face. Brilliant! I opened my eyes and exclaimed, absolutely brilliant! Leo looked at me with an expression that said, let's see what crap you can possibly spin out of this. Mr. Sterling, you think this is just an ordinary cookie, don't you? I held up the remaining half, my voice full of pity for his ignorance. You are wrong. So very wrong. This isn't a cookie. This is life itself. Taste it. The initial sweetness. Is that not our carefree childhood? It's followed by a kick of spice, the rebellion and passion of our youth. Then comes the bitterness, the pressure and responsibility of adulthood. And the lingering saltiness in the aftertaste represents the tears and sweat we shed after a long, hard life. With one small cookie, Miss Croft has managed to distill the 4 flavors of human existence. What a stunning achievement. What a profound statement. When I finished, the living room was dead silent. Leo's mouth was hanging open. He couldn't form a single word. Juliana was looking at me, and there were tiny stars shining in her eyes. Apathy level, 88%, 85%, 80%, 70%. I had done it. I looked at Leo's dumbfounded, defeated face, and for the first time I thought to myself, being a professional hype man is a damn good job. Leo left. He practically fled with his tail between his legs. Before he walked out the door, he shot a final, complex look at Juliana, then at me, but ultimately said nothing. My inner feed faithfully recorded his final thoughts as he retreated. Leo's inner monologue. How did she change so much? She's become articulate, almost dazzling. Leo's inner monologue. It's that man Chase. What in the world did he do to her? Leo's inner monologue. Interesting. Is this a new strategy to get my attention? Playing hard to get? Whatever it is, I think this is the first time I've ever actually been interested in her. I read that last line, and my stomach dropped. Oh crap. I think I just made things a lot more complicated. I'd managed to drive off a condescending jerk, but it looked like I had accidentally attracted a sadist in his place. In the original novel, Leo was purely dismissive of Juliana. Now he was interested? The plot had officially gone off the rails. Chase. Juliana's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. I turned to see her standing in front of me, still holding the plate of 4 flavored live cookies. Do you really think I did a good job? She asked quietly, her eyes full of a hesitant hope. It was the first time she had ever directly asked me for validation. Looking at her like this, I couldn't bring myself to use my usual over-the-top nonsense. I was quiet for a moment, then looked her seriously in the eyes. Boss, to be honest, the taste of these cookies is an acquired one. The light in her eyes immediately dimmed. In a monologue, I knew it. He was lying to me, too. Apathy level, 70%, 71%. But, I quickly added, just because they don't taste good doesn't mean they aren't a good creation. She looked at me, confused. Do you know why I was able to say all that just now? I asked her. She shook her head. Because I saw something in your cookies. What? Courage. I picked up another cookie. I don't know what Leo has said to you in the past, but I can guess it wasn't very nice. He put you down. He dismissed you. He made you feel like you were worthless. The fact that you were willing to present this plate of cookies you knew weren't perfect, to his face, that took tremendous courage. You were willing to show your imperfection, to face his potential ridicule. That alone makes you 100 times stronger than his smug arrogance. So, I wasn't complimenting the flavor of the cookie. I was complimenting your courage. And in my opinion, that courage is more valuable than anything a Michelin-starred chef could ever create. My voice was calm, with no trace of my usual hype. It was the first time I had said something to her that came completely from the heart. Juliana listened quietly, and her eyes slowly began to well up. A single tear escaped and rolled down her cheek, landing on the strange-looking cookie in her hand. Apathy level, 71%, 68%, 65%, 60%. Her apathy level had dropped to a point I had never seen before. "Thank you, Chase," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "That's the first time anyone has ever called me brave." Watching her cry, I felt a mix of emotions. I grabbed a tissue and handed it to her, trying to lighten the mood. "Hey, don't cry, boss. You'll smudge your makeup. You're the world's greatest, hyped up by $100,000 a month professional. You gotta act the part." A small laugh, escaped her lips. It was still mixed with tears, but her smile was like a rainbow after a storm, clean and bright. It was the first time I had ever seen her truly smile since I'd met her. For a second, I just stared, captivated. I suddenly realized that my hype, my nonsense, was actually changing things. I wasn't just saving a world-weary antagonist. It felt like I was personally hyping a brand new hero into existence. Seeing the last trace of that smile on her face, I felt a sense of accomplishment I had never known before. But at the same time, a sliver of unease crept in. The plot was now completely off script. I had no idea where the story would go from here. And what kind of trouble would a small-time hype man like me get dragged into? The aftershocks of the Leo incident lasted longer than I expected. It was like a dam had broken inside Juliana. Her entire demeanor changed. She stopped focusing on her chaotic paintings and inedible cooking and started reading. Actually reading the books that had never been on her empty shelves. Economics, history, philosophy. She devoured everything. Her apathy level stabilized around 60%, a number that brought me immense relief. I thought my job was about to get a lot easier. I was even thinking about asking for a vacation. But late one night, I was woken by a frantic knocking on my door. I opened it to find Juliana in her pajamas, her face pale, her expression more terrified than I had ever seen it. "Chase, I think I'm in trouble." "What happened?" My heart clenched. Did that creep Leo come back to harass her? "Come with me." She led me to her bedroom. It was my first time inside. Like the rest of the house, it was decorated in a black, Gothic style, but there were more personal, feminine touches here, making it feel less cold. She pointed to an old wooden box on her nightstand. "Do you remember this?" I looked closer. It was the box that had held the black credit stick she'd given me on our first day. I had taken a card, but she had kept the box. "Yeah, I remember. What about it?" With a trembling hand, she opened it. Inside, among a few pieces of jewelry, lay an ancient, string-bound book. The pages were yellowed with age, and the cover bore four strange, unsettling words in an eerie script. The Codex of the Void Heart. Just looking at the title sent a chill down my spine. "What is this?" I asked, playing dumb. It's a spell book I bought off the ShadowNet," she said, her voice cracking. I was going to learn the spells in it to get revenge on Leo. My blood ran cold. So here it was, the thing that was supposed to trigger her villain arc. The cursed grimoire for the original plot. Lately, I keep feeling this coldness around me, and I've been having nightmares. I think the book is turning on me. It's some kind of curse. She hugged herself, her body shaking uncontrollably. Seeing how scared she was, I started to feel a genuine fear myself. I'm a hype man, not an exorcist. How was I supposed to deal with actual dark magic? Just then, my internal feed lit up with an unprecedented, blinding red light. Lines of bold, golden text began to scroll frantically across my vision. Critical plot point triggered. Analyzing grimoire data. Analysis complete. Truth of grimoire. The Codex of the Void Heart is actually a fragmented scripture of the ancient and sacred 9 Cycles Genesis Sutra. Grimoire attributes. The initial stages of practice require the absorption of a small amount of ambient life force to build a foundation, leading to its misidentification as a dark art. When mastered, it grants the user dominion over life and death, with the power to reverse fate itself. Requirements for use. A 1 in a million prime conduit physique. I stared at the information, completely stunned. A cursed book? This wasn't a cursed book. This was a top-tier, protagonist-level superpower. Another line of text popped up, this one aimed directly at the trembling Juliana. Analyzing subject, Juliana Croft. Calculating compatibility. Compatibility, 100%. Conclusion. Subject Juliana Croft possesses the prime conduit physique. She is the sole suitable user for this sutra. My entire understanding of this world shattered. A shady cellar, a misunderstood legendary artifact, and a villain with a 1 in a million chosen one's body. All the pieces were there. Juliana was never meant to be the antagonist. She had the script for the main character all along. It was Leo's constant belittling and her own despair that had sent her down the wrong path. And my 2 months of hype therapy had, by complete accident, stabilized her mind enough to prevent her from practicing this powerful art while she was emotionally unstable, saving her from what would have been a catastrophic outcome. I looked at her, my mind reeling. It seemed I had actually, literally, hyped a new protagonist into existence. Chase, what do I do? Am I going to die? She asked, grabbing my arm like a lifeline. Before I could answer, a new line of text appeared, this one a menacing, blood red. Crisis alert. The organization that sold the grimoire, the Fading Star Syndicate, has discovered its true value. They are currently tracking the artifact's residual energy signature to the buyer's location. Estimated time of arrival, 10 minutes. Objective, retrieve the artifact and eliminate all witnesses. I stared at the words eliminate all witnesses, and I felt my blood turn to ice. Witnesses? That would be me and her. I glanced out the window. The deep, quiet night of the exclusive neighborhood suddenly felt sinister, hiding a rapidly approaching threat. I swallowed hard, looked at Juliana's terrified, helpless face, and for the very first time, I felt that my $100,000 a month salary was starting to burn a hole in my pocket.